Sarah Chen pressed her face against the viewing port of the mining station, watching the purple storms rage across the surface of Dracoris Prime. Lightning crackled between massive crystal formations that jutted from the planet's surface like ancient teeth. Most species considered this world cursed, but humans had always been drawn to places others feared. "Another beautiful day in paradise," muttered Crix, her Zentarian crewmate, as he passed behind her. His reptilian features showed obvious distaste for their current assignment. "I still don't understand why Command sent us to this nightmare world." Sarah turned from the window, her brown eyes reflecting determination that had gotten her both promoted and in trouble more times than she could count. "Because we're the only species crazy enough to mine in active storm zones. The dracorium crystals here are worth more than most planets' entire GDP. The mining station shuddered as another bolt of lightning struck their shields. Sarah's pack consisted of 5 beings from different worlds, all specialists in extreme environment operations. There was Crix, their geological expert whose people could sense mineral deposits through their feet. Vorthak, a massive insectoid warrior whose 4 arms could operate mining equipment with impossible precision. Zelen, an ethereal wispling whose kind could phase through solid matter to scout dangerous areas. And finally, Captain Torres, a gruff Corellian whose people had been exploring dangerous worlds since before most species had developed spaceflight. What made their pack unusual wasn't just their diverse skills, it was their willingness to work with a human. Most galactic mining crews avoided humans, considering them too unpredictable, too emotional, too likely to make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. But Captain Torres had specifically requested Sarah after reading her file. Her record showed an uncanny ability to find solutions others missed, though her methods often defied conventional wisdom. "Chen, report to the bridge," Torres's voice crackled over the comm system. "We've got a situation." Sarah made her way through the station's corridors, noting how the alien architecture felt cramped around her human frame. The designers had built everything for shorter species, forcing her to duck under some doorways. It was a constant reminder that she didn't quite fit in this galactic community. The bridge was a testament to multi-species engineering, with workstations adapted for each crew member's unique physiology. Captain Torres stood before the main display, his 4 eyes focused on readings that made Sarah's stomach tighten with concern. "We've detected massive seismic activity in Sector 7, Torres announced without preamble. His kind valued efficiency over pleasantries. "Something big is moving down there and it's heading straight for our primary mining operation." Vorthak clicked his mandibles nervously. "Seismic readings suggest a creature at least 200 meters in length. Nothing that size should be able to survive in the storm zones." "Maybe it's not trying to survive," Zelen whispered, her translucent form flickering with emotion. "Maybe it's trying to die." Sarah studied the readouts, her mind racing. The creature's movement pattern was erratic, desperate. "What if it's not attacking? What if it's running from something?" Crix snorted, a sound like grinding rocks. "Running from what? Nothing hunts in those storms." "Maybe that's exactly the point," Sarah said, her voice growing excited as the pieces fell together. "What if the storms aren't natural? What if they're a defense mechanism?" The bridge fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the distant rumble of thunder. Captain Torres fixed all 4 eyes on Sarah, a sign of serious attention among his people. "Explain," he commanded. Sarah moved to the tactical display, highlighting the creature's path. "Look at the pattern. It's not random. The creature is following the storm boundaries, staying just inside the electrical field. And see these readings? The storms are actually intensifying around it." "Impossible," Vorthak buzzed. "No creature could generate that much electrical energy." "Not one creature," Sarah agreed, then paused as another thought struck her. What if there are 2? She manipulated the display, showing the energy patterns in 3 dimensions. Hidden within the chaos of the storm was a second signature, much smaller but moving in perfect synchronization with the larger one. "A mother protecting her young," Sarah breathed. "That's why the movement seems desperate. She's injured, maybe dying, but still trying to shield her baby from something." Zellen's form brightened with understanding. "The mining operation, our explosives, our drilling. We've been disrupting their habitat." Captain Torres examined the data with the methodical precision his species was known for. "If you're correct, the adult creature is likely terminal. The energy expenditure required to maintain those storm patterns would be unsustainable for an injured animal." "What happens to the baby when the mother dies?" Sarah asked quietly. "It becomes prey for everything else on this world," Crix answered with brutal honesty. "Young Dracorians have no natural defenses. Their storm generation abilities don't develop until maturity." Sarah felt something twist in her chest, an emotion that her alien crewmates would never understand. Humans had evolved as pack hunters, with strong instincts to protect the young of any species. It was a trait that often confused other galactic civilizations, who prioritized their own kind above all others. "We have to help," she said simply. The bridge erupted in protests. Vorthak's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "The mining contract is worth millions of credits. We cannot abandon our operation for a primitive creature." "Even if we wanted to help," Crix added, "how would we accomplish such a task? The electromagnetic interference makes transport impossible. Anything we send down there would be fried instantly." Captain Torres raised one of his hands for silence. His people were natural leaders, and the gesture carried authority that transcended species barriers. "Chen, you are proposing we risk everything for creatures we don't understand, for no logical benefit to ourselves or our mission." "Yes, sir, I am." "And you believe this is the correct course of action?" Sarah met his four-eyed stare without flinching. "I believe it's the human course of action." A long moment passed. The storm outside seemed to intensify, as if the planet itself was waiting for their decision. Finally, Captain Torres spoke. "Very well. Present your plan." Sarah moved to the engineering station, her fingers flying over controls designed for different appendages. "The electromagnetic field follows specific patterns. If we can map the harmonics, we might be able to create a window of calm in the storm matrix." "That would require precise timing and enormous power expenditure," Vorthak protested. "And someone would still need to go down there personally," Zalen added. "The baby creature won't understand our intentions." "It would need to be guided to safety by someone it trusts." Sarah nodded grimly. "Which means making contact first. Someone has to get close enough to establish communication." "The radiation levels alone would kill most species," Crix pointed out. Sarah smiled, the expression carrying both determination and a hint of reckless excitement that made her alien crewmates uncomfortable. Good thing humans are notoriously hard to kill. Captain Torres studied the readings one more time, then made a decision that would change all their lives. "Begin preparations. We attempt this rescue in 6 hours when the next storm cycle reaches its lowest intensity." As the crew dispersed to begin preparations, Sarah remained on the bridge, watching the energy patterns dance across the display. Somewhere down in those lethal storms, a mother was dying while trying to protect her child. It was a situation that transcended species, touching something fundamental about the nature of love and sacrifice. She didn't notice Captain Torres' approach until he spoke softly behind her. "Your people never cease to amaze me, Chen. Most species would calculate the odds and withdraw. Humans calculate the odds and charge forward anyway." "Is that good or bad?" Sarah asked. Torres considered the question seriously. "I suppose we'll find out." The next few hours passed in a blur of technical preparations and heated arguments. Vorthak insisted the plan was impossible. Crix calculated their chances of success at less than 12%. Zelen worried about the ethical implications of interfering with natural processes, but none of them suggested abandoning the mission entirely. Sarah spent the time modifying her environmental suit, adding extra shielding and backup power systems. The equipment was designed for mining operations, not rescue missions in electromagnetic hellstorms. But humans had always been good at making do with inadequate tools. As the appointed time approached, she stood in the transport bay, checking her gear one final time. The suit felt heavy and cumbersome, but it was the only thing that might keep her alive long enough to reach the creatures below. "Final systems check complete," she announced over the comm. "All readings are green." "Remember," Captain Torres's voice came through her helmet speaker, "you have exactly 17 minutes from insertion to extraction. After that, the storm intensity will exceed our ability to maintain the transport window." "Understood." "Captain?" "Chen," Crix's gravelly voice interrupted. "For what it's worth, I hope you prove me wrong about those odds." Sarah smiled inside her helmet. "Thanks, Crix. See you on the other side." The transport chamber sealed around her, and she felt the familiar sensation of molecular displacement beginning. Through the transparent walls, she could see her crewmates watching with expressions ranging from concern to outright terror. Then the world dissolved into lightning and thunder, and Sarah plummeted toward the surface of Dracoris Prime, carrying with her the hopes of two mothers separated by species, time, and the vast darkness between stars. The storm welcomed her with arms of pure electricity, and for a moment, she wondered if this was how heroes were supposed to feel, completely terrified but moving forward anyway. The transport beam deposited Sarah onto a ledge of crystalline rock that jutted from the side of a massive cliff. Immediately, the full fury of Dracoris Prime's storms engulfed her. Lightning crashed around her in patterns that seemed almost alive, and the electromagnetic interference turned her suit's display into a chaos of static and error messages. "Chen, do you copy?" Captain Torres's voice crackled through the helmet speaker, barely audible above the storm's roar. "I'm down!" Sarah gasped, fighting to maintain her footing on the slick crystal surface. "But this is worse than our simulations predicted." The temperature readings on her suit were fluctuating wildly, swinging from near freezing to scorching hot as different energy fields swept over her. Any other species would have been dead within minutes. But human biology had always been stubbornly adaptable. Sarah's body automatically adjusted, her cardiovascular system compensating for the pressure changes while her nervous system filtered out the sensory overload. She activated her magnetic boots and began moving across the crystal formations, following the energy readings toward the creature's position. The landscape around her was alien and beautiful in a terrifying way. Massive crystal spires reached toward the purple sky, crackling with stored electrical energy. Between them, pools of liquid metal reflected the constant lightning like broken mirrors. "Proximity alert," her suit's computer announced in its maddeningly calm voice. "Large organism detected 200 meters ahead." Sarah crested a ridge and saw her first glimpse of a living dragon. The mother was magnificent and heartbreaking at the same time. She was easily 3 times larger than the preliminary scans had suggested, her scales shimmering with an internal light that pulsed in rhythm with the storms around her. But those same scales were cracked and bleeding, and her movements were sluggish with exhaustion. The dragon's head turned toward Sarah, and their eyes met across the chaos of the storm. Sarah had expected to see animal intelligence, perhaps some basic recognition. Instead, she found herself looking into eyes that held depths of wisdom and pain that took her breath away. The dragon's mouth opened, and a sound emerged that was part roar, part song, and part something that Sarah's human brain interpreted as a desperate plea. The creature was trying to communicate. "Chen, what's your status?" Torres's voice seemed to come from very far away. "I've made contact with the mother," Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off the massive creature. "She's intelligent, Captain. More intelligent than we thought." The dragon moved then, shifting its massive bulk to reveal what it was protecting. Nestled between her forearms was the baby, no larger than a human child, but perfect in its miniature dragon-like features. It was unconscious, its tiny chest barely rising and falling with labored breathing. Sarah understood immediately. The mother had been using her own life force to maintain the storm barriers, pouring her energy into protecting her child from the mining explosions that had disrupted their underground lair. She was dying to keep her baby alive, and both of them were failing. Moving slowly and keeping her hands visible, Sarah approached the massive creature. The dragon watched her every movement, ready to strike if she posed any threat to her young. But something in Sarah's posture, some quality of her movement that transcended species barriers, seemed to communicate her peaceful intentions. "Easy, girl," Sarah whispered, knowing the dragon couldn't understand her words but hoping her tone would carry meaning. "I'm here to help." The dragon tilted her enormous head, and Sarah saw something that made her heart race with excitement and terror. The creature was crying. Not tears as humans understood them, but streams of pure energy that flowed from her eyes and dissipated into the storm around them. Sarah reached into her equipment pack and pulled out the emergency medical scanner she had insisted on bringing. The device had been modified for use on unknown species, capable of basic biological analysis regardless of the creature's evolutionary origin. "I need to scan the baby," she said, holding up the device, "to see how I can help." The dragon stared at the scanner for a long moment, then did something that shocked Sarah to her core. The massive creature lowered her head in a gesture that could only be interpreted as a nod. Working quickly, Sarah activated the scanner and passed it over the baby dragon. The readings that came back were worse than she had feared. The little creature was suffering from massive energy depletion, its developing nervous system unable to cope with the electromagnetic chaos surrounding them. But there was more. The scanner detected traces of a neurotoxin in the baby's system, something that had been introduced through the very air it breathed. Sarah's training kicked in as she recognized the signature. It was a byproduct of the explosive compounds they used in the mining operation. "Captain, the baby's been poisoned by our mining chemicals," she reported. "Its system can't process the toxins without help." "What kind of help?" Torres's voice was tight with concern. Sarah looked at her medical supplies, then at the massive mother dragon who watched her with desperate hope in her ancient eyes. "I need to synthesize an antidote, but the process requires a stable energy source. The electromagnetic interference is too chaotic here. Chen, you have 12 minutes remaining. The transport window is already starting to fluctuate." Sarah studied the readings again, her mind racing through possibilities. The antidote synthesis would take at least 8 minutes in these conditions, leaving no margin for error. But as she looked at the baby dragon's failing vital signs, she knew she couldn't abandon the creatures to die. "I have an idea," she announced, "but you're not going to like it." She began modifying her suit's power systems, rerouting energy from non-essential functions to boost the medical synthesizer. It was dangerous beyond measure. If the calculations were wrong, the suit would lose life support and she would die alongside the dragons. "Chen, what are you doing? Your power readings just dropped 30%. "Creating stable power for the antidote synthesis," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the suit's control panel. "But I need help." She looked up at the mother dragon, who had been watching her work with intense concentration. Slowly, Sarah reached out and placed her gloved hand on the creature's massive forearm. The contact was electric in more ways than one. Through her suit's sensors, Sarah could feel the raw power flowing through the dragon's body, energy that would normally kill any organic being instantly. But instead of burning her, the power seemed to respond to her touch, becoming focused and controlled. "That's it," Sarah breathed. You can control the electromagnetic fields if we work together." She began adjusting her equipment to interface with the dragon's bioelectric field. It was improvisation at the most dangerous level, combining alien biology with human technology in ways that had never been attempted before. The mother dragon seemed to understand what Sarah was trying to do. With delicate precision that seemed impossible for such a massive creature, she began modulating her energy output to match the requirements of Sarah's equipment. The antidote synthesizer hummed to life, its processes now stabilized by the controlled energy flow. Sarah watched the progress bar crawl forward, each second bringing them closer to salvation or disaster. "Chen, transport window is critical. You need to extract now." "Almost there," Sarah replied, sweat running down her face despite the suit's climate control. Come on." The synthesizer chimed completion just as Sarah's power reserves hit critical levels. She grabbed the antidote injector and moved to the baby dragon, praying that her medical training and the universal scanner's analysis were accurate. The baby's eyes opened as Sarah approached, revealing orbs of swirling gold that held the same deep intelligence as its mother. For a moment, the tiny creature seemed to smile, then its eyes drifted closed again. Sarah administered the antidote with hands that shook from adrenaline and fear. For long seconds, nothing happened. Then the baby dragon's breathing began to strengthen, its scales brightening as the poison was neutralized. The mother dragon's roar of joy shook the entire cliff face, and for the first time since Sarah's arrival, the storm around them began to calm. The creature was no longer pouring all her energy into protective barriers. "It's working," Sarah announced. "The baby's stabilizing. Chen, you have 90 seconds to extraction point. Move now." Sarah looked at the mother dragon, who was already showing signs of recovery as she stopped draining her life force to maintain the storms. The massive creature lowered her head until she was eye level with Sarah. In that moment, something passed between them that had nothing to do with words or technology. It was recognition, gratitude, and something deeper. An acknowledgement that despite their different species, they were both mothers at heart, willing to sacrifice everything for the young and vulnerable. The dragon opened her mouth and exhaled gently, surrounding Sarah with a warm cloud of air that sparkled with harmless bioelectric energy. Sarah's suit registered the gesture as a blessing, a gift of gratitude from one mother to another. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, placing her hand one more time on the dragon's snout. Then she was running, her magnetic boots carrying her across the treacherous crystal formations toward the extraction point. Behind her, she could hear the baby dragon's first healthy cry, a sound of pure joy that cut through the diminishing storm. The transport beam caught her just as her suit's power systems finally failed, pulling her up through layers of purple lightning toward the safety of the mining station. As she materialized in the transport bay, Sarah collapsed to her knees, exhaustion and relief flooding through her system. "Medical team to transport bay," Torres's voice echoed through the station. "Chen, are you injured?" Sarah pulled off her helmet and looked up at her crewmates, who had gathered around the transport chamber. Their faces showed a mixture of amazement, concern, and something she couldn't quite identify. "I'm fine," she managed. "The baby's going to live." Vorthak clicked his mandibles in what Sarah had learned was his expression of deep confusion. "You risked your life for creatures you had never met, with no possibility of reward or recognition." "She risked all our lives," Crix added, but his tone was more wondering than accusatory. "The mining operation, our contracts, our reputations, all of it was secondary to saving 2 animals." Sarah stood slowly, her legs still shaky from the adrenaline crash. "They weren't just animals. The mother was intelligent, maybe more intelligent than any of us. And the baby—" She paused, remembering those golden eyes. "The baby trusted me." Zellen's translucent form flickered with emotion. In all our species' exploration of the galaxy, we have never encountered anything like what you just did. The idea of risking everything for unknown creatures goes against every survival instinct we evolved. Sarah looked around at her crewmates, seeing them with new eyes. She realized that what had just happened down on the planet's surface was about more than saving 2 dragons. It was about showing her pack something they had never seen before. The uniquely human ability to care beyond the boundaries of species, logic, or self-interest. "Maybe that's what makes us different," she said quietly. "Maybe that's why humans are worth having around." Captain Torres studied her with all 4 eyes, his expression unreadable. "Chen, what you did today will require a complete mission report. Command will want to understand how and why you made the choices you made." Sarah nodded, suddenly aware that the consequences of her actions were just beginning. "I understand, Captain." "Good," Torres said, and for the first time since Sarah had known him, the Corellian commander smiled. "Because I have a feeling that report is going to change how the galaxy sees your species." As her crewmates dispersed to begin documenting the day's events, Sarah returned to the viewing port where she had started her shift hours earlier. Down below, the storms were clearing for the first time in recorded history, revealing a landscape of stunning crystal formations that glittered in the light of Dracoris Prime's twin suns. And somewhere in that beautiful wilderness, a mother dragon was teaching her baby to fly. 3 days after the rescue, Sarah found herself sitting in the station's observation lounge, surrounded by her crewmates in what had become an impromptu council meeting. The mood was unlike anything she had experienced in her years of working with alien species. Captain Torres stood before the main display, which showed the latest geological surveys of Dracoris Prime. The data was staggering. With the electromagnetic storms finally cleared, the planet was revealing secrets that had been hidden for millennia. "The mineral wealth we've uncovered in the last 72 hours exceeds our original estimates by a factor of 12, Torres announced. "But that's not why we're gathered here." Crix shifted uncomfortably in his specially designed chair, his rocky features showing an emotion Sarah had never seen before: uncertainty. "What happened down there has raised questions that none of our species have adequate frameworks to process." Sarah looked around the room at faces that had become familiar over months of dangerous work together. But now something had changed in how they looked at her. The wariness was still there, but it was mixed with something else, something that made her uncomfortable in ways she couldn't quite define. "I need to understand something," Vorthak clicked, his 4 arms gesturing in complex patterns that indicated deep confusion. "Your actions saved 2 creatures you had never met, at enormous personal risk, with no possibility of material gain. But the consequences of that choice have benefited us all beyond measure." Sarah frowned. "I don't follow." Zellen's translucent form brightened, her species equivalent of excitement. "The dragons, Sarah. They've been trying to communicate with us since you healed the baby." On cue, the observation lounge's communication array activated, and a sound filled the room that made Sarah's heart skip. It was the same song-like roar she had heard from the mother dragon, but now it was coming through their translation matrix, converted into words her universal translator could process. "Gratitude song for the small one who heals." The voice was ancient and deep, carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Sarah's bones. "Pack leader who saves young speaks with us now, yes?" Sarah's crewmates all turned to look at her, their expressions ranging from awe to something approaching fear. She stood slowly, her legs still shaky from the realization of what was happening. "You can understand me?" she asked. "Understanding comes with trust gift given," the dragon replied. "Small healing one chose sacrifice for unknown young. This choice speaks truth language all mothers know." Captain Torres moved to stand beside Sarah, his 4 eyes focused intently on the communication display. "Honored creature, we are grateful for your willingness to speak with us. May we know your name?" A sound that might have been laughter came through the translator. Names are for short-lived peoples. We are the storm singers, the mountain mothers, the first children of stone. But if small names comfort you, this one is called Thyrathan. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Thyrathan, how long have your people been on this world? Since stone was soft and stars were young, came the reply. We sang the mountains into being, shaped the storms to guard our nests, but then the sky swimmers came with fire tools, making the deep earth shake with hungry noise. Crix leaned forward, his geological training overriding his emotional confusion. The mining operations. We've been disrupting their ancient settlements. Yes, truth, Thyrathan confirmed. Many nests destroyed, many young lost to poison air and breaking ground. We prepared to sing death storms, to drive sky swimmers away forever. A long silence filled the room as the implications sank in. They hadn't just been mining in dangerous territory. They had been conducting operations in the middle of an ancient civilization's nurseries. But Small Healing One chose different path, Thyrathan continued. Chose to heal instead of harm, chose to save instead of take. This choice changes all songs. Vorthak's mandibles clicked rapidly. What do you mean, changes all songs? Storm singers remember all choices, carry all songs forward through stone time, the dragon explained. Choice of Small Healing One becomes legend song, truth song that echoes in dragon dreams forever. Sky swimmers who travel with Healing One are pack-kin now, part of ancient song. Sarah sank back into her chair as the full weight of what had happened began to settle on her. I just wanted to save a baby. Yes, truth, Thyrathan agreed, and Sarah could hear warmth in the ancient voice. Wanted only to heal, expected nothing in return. This is why choice carries power to change all songs. Captain Torres cleared his throat, a sound that carried the weight of command decisions across multiple species. Honored Thyrathan, what does this mean for our operations here? Mining work continues, but in harmony with stone songs, came the reply. Storm singers show safe paths, guide sky swimmers to crystal wealth that sleeps in dead stone, away from living nests. Partnership song begins now, wealth shared between stone children and sky swimmers. The room erupted in quiet conversations as crew members began to grasp the magnitude of what Sarah's single act of compassion had accomplished. What should have been a violent first contact situation had transformed into the galaxy's first formal partnership between humans and a previously unknown sentient species. But Sarah barely heard the excited planning discussions around her. She was focused on something else entirely, the way her crewmates were looking at her. Zelen drifted closer, her translucent form flickering with emotions too complex for words. Sarah, in all the histories of galactic civilization, no species has ever accomplished what you did today. I don't understand. Crix stood and moved to the geological display, his rocky fingers tracing patterns across the mineral wealth projections. Every species in known space follows the same basic protocols for first contact: assessment, calculation, negotiation, contract. Even when dealing with obvious intelligence, we approach from a position of mutual benefit. It's logical, Vorthak added, his forearms gesturing in patterns Sarah recognized as deep respect. Both parties evaluate potential gains and losses, then proceed based on calculated outcomes. Captain Torres nodded slowly. But what you did defied all calculation. You risked everything for creatures you didn't know with no expectation of reward. You acted on pure compassion. Sarah shrugged, feeling uncomfortable with their intense scrutiny. Any mother would have done the same thing. No, Zelen whispered, her form brightening with revelation. That's exactly the point. None of our species would have done the same thing. We don't have the emotional framework for that kind of selfless action. The communication array crackled back to life, and Thyrathan's voice filled the room again. Storm singers wish to speak truth song about small healing one's people. We're listening, Captain Torres replied formally. Sky swimmers call themselves by many names, but healing people are different song, the dragon began. Healing people feel pain of all young, not just nestkin. Feel joy of all mothers, not just pack mothers. This truth song echoes in actions, makes choices that other sky swimmers cannot make. Sarah felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. It's not that special. Any human would have risked their life for an unknown alien baby? Vorthak interrupted gently. Sarah, I've studied galactic behavioral patterns for decades. What you did is unprecedented. Crix moved closer to her chair, his massive frame somehow gentle in its approach. Do you know what the Zentarian word for human translates to in our ancient language? Sarah shook her head. Those who care beyond reason, he said quietly. We thought it was a criticism. We were wrong. The pieces began clicking together in Sarah's mind as she looked around the room. The stunned expressions on her crewmates' faces weren't just about the successful first contact or the mining partnership. They were about something far more fundamental. You're all realizing that humans are different, she said slowly, not in our technology or our intelligence, but in how we feel about other species. Zelen nodded, her form pulsing with excitement. Every galactic civilization prioritizes its own kind first. It's basic evolutionary programming. We form alliances based on mutual benefit, but we don't genuinely care about the welfare of other species. But humans do, Vorthak added. You proved it today. Given a choice between personal safety and helping unknown creatures, you chose helping. Not once, but consistently, automatically, without even questioning the decision. Captain Torres moved to the communication panel and activated a ship-wide broadcast. All crew, this is the captain. Record new entry in the ship's log. Date, Galactic Standard 7.43215. Event classification, first contact, successful. He paused, then continued with something Sarah had never heard in his voice before, genuine emotion. Note for command. Recommend immediate policy review regarding human crew integration in first contact scenarios. Human emotional responses, previously considered liability factors, have proven uniquely valuable in establishing communication with unknown sentient species. What does that mean? Sarah asked. Torres turned to face her, all four eyes reflecting a mixture of respect and something approaching awe. It means, Chen, that what you did today is going to change how the entire galaxy thinks about your species. Alliance Command has been debating human integration for decades, Crix explained. Too unpredictable, too emotional, too willing to take unnecessary risks. But what they saw as weaknesses are actually strengths, Zalen finished. Humans don't just tolerate other species. You empathize with them. You see a suffering creature and you don't calculate the cost-benefit ratio of helping. You just help. Thyrathan's voice returned to the speakers as if the ancient dragon had been listening to their conversation. Truth song of healing, people spreads through stone dreams now. Other storm singer nests across far mountains, learn of sky swimmers who choose healing over taking. How many nests? Captain Torres asked. Stone count beyond sky swimmer numbers, Thyrathan replied. Healing people's truth song echoes to nest mothers who guard crystal wealth on 1,000 worlds. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit her. You're saying there are dragons on other planets, and they're all learning about what happened here? Yes, truth. Storm singer song paths reach across star darkness, carry truth songs to all nest mothers. Small healing one's choice becomes legend song for all stone children. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Sarah had not just saved one baby dragon. She had inadvertently established humanity as a trusted species across an entire galactic civilization that nobody else had even known existed. The mining rights alone, Vorthak whispered. Across 1,000 worlds. In partnership with the dragons. We'll make humanity one of the wealthiest species in known space, Torres finished. All because one human chose to save a baby. Sarah stood abruptly, the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. I never intended for any of this. I just saw a mother trying to protect her child. Exactly, Zelen said softly. That's what makes it so powerful. You didn't calculate the outcome or consider the political implications. You acted on pure compassion, and that single moment of genuine caring is reverberating across the galaxy. Captain Torres activated his personal comm unit. Priority message to Alliance Command. Request immediate diplomatic corps deployment to Dracoris Prime. Humanity has established first contact with a previously unknown galactic civilization. Circumstances extraordinary. Full report to follow. He paused, then added, recommend all future deep space exploration teams include human crew members. Their unique emotional responses may be key to peaceful contact with unknown species. As her crewmates began the complex process of documenting their discoveries and preparing for the arrival of diplomatic teams, Sarah returned to her favorite spot at the observation window. Down below, the clear skies of Dracoris Prime revealed a landscape more beautiful than she had ever imagined possible. In the distance, she could see shapes moving through the crystal formations, dragons, teaching their young to fly in skies, finally free of the protective storms they had maintained for countless generations. Small Healing One, Therathan's voice came through a personal communicator, speaking directly to her. Yes? Stone dreams show truth path ahead. Healing people will travel far stars, meet many sky swimmers who need truth song of caring. Are you ready for such journey songs? Sarah smiled, thinking of all the alien worlds that might hold creatures in need of help, of all the species that had yet to discover that someone could care about them without expecting anything in return. Yes, she said simply. We're ready. And as she watched the dragons dance through the crystal canyons below, Sarah realized that her crew's reaction wasn't about being stunned by her actions. They were stunned by the realization that they had been traveling through the galaxy with representatives of the one species that could truly unite all others, not through superior technology or military might, but through the simple, revolutionary act of caring.